in the Bhagavatam, contribution to the philosophy in this maturity. Canto 2, Chapter 4, Process of Creation. Text number 15. Yat, Kirtanam, Yat, Smaranam, Yat, Ishtanam, Yat, Vandanam, Yat, Shravanam, Yat, Arhanam, Lokasyam, Yam, Mon-Fri, Mon-Sun, Tasmai, Subhadra, Ravase, Mama, Mama, Yat Kirtanam, Yat Smaranam, Yat Ishtanam, Advaitvam, Yat Shravanam, Yat it's my Subhadra, Shravan say Namo Namo. Kirtanam Yat Smaranam Yat Ishtanam, Advaitvam, Yat Shravanam, Justice of God, the Nordic Commission. God, let us in the moment of heart. There's no God, small name, you should know. Justice of God, the Nordic Commission. This one is about God, let us in the moment of heart.
Yat Kirtanam Yat Smaranam Yat Ishtanam, Yat Vandanam Yat Shravanam Yat Arhanam, Yasanyo Vinoti Kamasam, say Namo Namo. Tasmai Subhadraya Namaste Namo Yakirtanaya Smaranaya Krishna Yavatanam Yashtaram Yakarjunam Yasadyo Vidnoti Karmasam Tasmai Subhadraya Yat Kirtanam Yat Smaranam Yadikshanam Yat Vandanam Yat Shravanam Yadadhanam Lokasya Satyo Vidnoti Karmasham Tasmai Subhadraya Namo Namaha Yat Kirtanam Yat Smaranam Yadikshanam Yad Vandanam Yad Shravanam Yad Arhanam Lokasya Sadyo Vidinoti Kalmasham Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha
Foods, kirtanam, glorification, yat, foods, smaranam, remembrance, yat, foods, ikshanam, audience, yat, foods, vandanam, prayers, yat, foods, sravanam, hearing about, yat, foods, arhanam, worshiping, lokasya, people, savyam, forthwith, devoting, specifically means pramasham, effects of sins, tasmai, unto him, Subhadra, all auspicious, God say, language firm, Nama, ideal obeisance, Nama, again and again. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the auspicious, all auspicious Lord, Sri Krishna, about
glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. Report by His divine grace. The sublime form of religious performances to free oneself from all reactions of sins is suggested herein by the greatest authority, Sri Shukadev Goswami. Kirtanam, or glorifying the Lord, can be performed by very many ways, such as remembering, visiting temples to see the deity, offering prayers in front of the Lord, and hearing recitations of glorification of the Lord as they are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam or in the Bhagavad Gita. Kirtan can be performed both by singing the glories of the Lord in accompaniment with melodious music and by recitation of scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. The devotees may not be disappointed in the absence of the Lord physically, although they may think of not being associated with Him. The devotional process of chanting, hearing, remembering, etc., either all or some of them, or even one of them, can give us the desired result of being associated with the Lord by discharging the transcendental loving service of the Lord in the above manner. Even the very sound of the holy name of Lord Krishna or Ram can at once surcharge the atmosphere spiritually, and we must know definitely that the Lord is present wherever such pure transcendental service is performed. And thus the performer of offenseless kirtan has positive association with the Lord. Similarly, remembrance and prayers also can give us the desired result if they are properly done under expert guidance. One should not concoct forms of devotional service. One may worship the form of the Lord in a temple, or one may and personally offer the Lord devotional prayers in a mosque or a church. One is sure to get free from the reactions of sins, provided one is very careful about not committing sins willingly in expectation of getting free from the reactions of sins by worshiping in the temple or by offering prayers in the church. This mentality of committing sins willfully on the strength of devotional service is called Namno Bala Papabuddhi, the greatest offense in the discharge of devotional service. Hearing is therefore essential in order to keep oneself strictly on guard against such pitfalls of sins. And in order to give special stress to the hearing process, the Goswami invokes all auspicious fortune in this matter. Translation again. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. Donovan Maharaj, you have the highest realization of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're always eager to hear from you.
Lord Krishna is especially mentioned here, although there are many forms of God. There are thousands. Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. Ananta means unlimited. Unlimited forms of God. And each of these forms is transcendental and worshipable. But Lord Krishna appears himself, all the incarnations appear with him. That means that one is getting the benefit of all the wonderful qualities of each of the incarnations, Lord, in the form of Krishna. In other words, one can get protection from Krishna as one tries to get protection from Lord Nrsingadev. Prahlad Maharaj was worshiping Krishna, and then Lord Nrsinga came in his form as half man, half lion. So when Lord Ramachandra was approached by some of the women of different places that he visited, Ayodhya and other places, the women were very attracted to him because he was so beautiful, so attractive, so handsome. And they offered to become his wives. But he declined, saying that in this pastime, I have accepted the vow of only accepting one wife. But because you have desired so adamantly to serve me in that way, I will give you the opportunity to serve as my consorts when I appear later. And he was referring to Lord Krishna. And that's actually what happened. Many of these ladies from Lord Ramachandra's time appeared as gopis to have the Lord as their consort. So Krishna's appearance is extremely extraordinary because he transcends even the behavior of the other incarnations. The incarnations of the Lord are all transcendental, not bound up by some material conception. But still, Krishna's appearance is so glorious that Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself, appearing as a devotee of Krishna, he wanted to experience the transcendental ecstasy that Srimati Radharani, Lord Krishna's eternal consort, was experiencing. And so that Radha Krishna Parakiya Bhava, that particular emotion of love for God, is especially presented as Krishna and Radha and the devotees of Radha and the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. They cherish that. Even though they're all transcendental, still Lord Krishna's name is known as Mukhya. Mukhya means the primary, the foremost. All the names, there are, for example, there's 1,000 names of Vishnu, Sahasranam. They're all transcendental, but still the name Krishna is described as being more powerful. For example, it is said that if one chants the 1,000 names of Vishnu, that can be, if he says it 3 times, I think that equals one name of Ram, and you chant the name Ram 3 times equals the name of Krishna. So one name of Krishna is extremely potent. And we see this, that the Krishna consciousness movement is spreading all over the world in all different types of situations where people are from atheistic backgrounds or people are from Islamic background or Hindu background or Christian background, Buddhist background. It doesn't matter, because actually these are not our eternal relationships. These are describing our external bodily situation. Whereas the Krishna Bhakti is the eternal nature of the soul to be always engaged and associated with Lord Krishna. The eternal position of every soul is to be a devotee of Krishna, and that includes his different forms. When we speak of Krishna, we can't exclude all the different forms, because actually Krishna includes everything. He's the source of everything. Everything comes from him. And in one sense, everything is him. It's not different from him. At the same time, he continues to possess his own eternal form, his original form, in his Swayam Rupa. The original form of God is two-handed. Form is Krishna playing his flute. And even though this is misunderstood by certain scholars who think that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu, that's all right. Even though that's not technically correct, there's no harm, because Vishnu and Krishna are taken to be one.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you very much. As Maharaj just said, the appearance of Lord Krishna is all auspicious. This word, Sanskrit word in the shloka, Subhadra means all auspicious. Other incarnations, they display the opulence of God partially. But Krishna, when he came to this earth 5,000 years ago, he displayed the full opulence of God. Lord Ramachandra, when he came, Ramachandra took a vow to marry one wife. Lord Ramachandra followed the Vedic rules and regulations very strictly. But Krishna, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead displaying full opulences, sometimes he violates religious principles because he can do anything he wants. Krishna married 16,000 wives. Sometimes when he was a little boy, Krishna used to steal butter and yogurt from neighbors' houses, and he was naughty, passing stolen urine on the neighbors' floors. Sometimes Krishna breaks his own promise for the sake of his devotee. So God is not bound by the rules and regulations of this material world or by Vedic culture, but we are bound. We cannot imitate the great, but we have to follow their instructions. And in the first paragraph, Sri Sukadeva Goswami is described by Srila Prabhupada as the greatest authority, even though Sukadeva Goswami, he's the speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's only a 16-year-old boy, no clothes, long hair. He didn't look like a Gaudiya Vaishnava, but still, he was respected by all the sages of the universe as the greatest authority. And most of you are young men. You can also become the greatest authority by following the instructions of Sukadeva Goswami. All of you should become the greatest authorities and spread this knowledge all over the world. This is the mission of the Krishna consciousness movement, to spread the knowledge of God, how to understand God, and how to love God. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his brother, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, they're the essence of all incarnations, and they've appeared here in Kansas City. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they're Parama Karuna. They're supremely merciful. They're the crest jewel of all incarnations. Because Krishna, when he came, he said, first of all, you surrender, then I'll protect you. But Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they freely distributed love of God to anyone, even the most fallen. And their process of worship is simply joyful, simply chanting and dancing. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai. And in this purport, Prabhupada writes, one should not concoct forms of devotional service. This is important for those who are serious about going back home, back to Godhead. And the Christians and the Buddhists and the Muslims, they can also perform devotional service by chanting the names of Lord Buddha, chanting the names of Jesus, or chanting the names of Allah. These are all different names of God, and by remembering their activities, chanting their glories, they also become purified. And they're also performing bhakti, so no one should derive those who are worshiping the Supreme Lord. He has many millions of names in different places and different countries, but he's worshipped by the different people according to their realization. And their worship may be lower and higher, but the test of any religion is how much do I understand God and how much do I love God? The test of any religion can be analyzed by how much its followers are developing love of God. So the Muslims, they offer prayers to the Lord 5 times daily. That's more than I offer. So I shouldn't think I'm necessarily more advanced than a Muslim. So they're also making progress. And one day, because they're in the process of bhakti, one day ultimately they'll come out pure devotees. It may take many lifetimes, but they're in the shower, that they're getting cleansed. And Prabhupada talks about here sins. After being cleansed of sins by the process of bhakti yoga, one should not again commit more sins, thinking that just like the elephant takes his bath very nicely. Then when he comes out on the shore, he again throws dust all over his body. So this is not the process of becoming clean. After becoming clean once, one should not commit more sins over and over again. This is the greatest offense in the discharge of devotional service. So thank you all for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome, sir. What is your philosophy? Yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to discover it. I was raised Catholic, and then that didn't work, and so I rejected God for a decade or so. And so, some of the seeds of more Eastern traditions started to take a few years ago. And this year I decided to get sober and to quit using alcohol and drugs. And I've been seeking the spiritual practice that will bring me closer to God. I see that, you know, all religions are trying to communicate about the same thing, that like God is God is God, math is math is math. You know, you might teach math differently in Japan than you would in America, but it's still math. And God is still God, whether you call God Jesus, Allah, Krishna. It's all the same thing that we're trying to communicate and feel. That feeling of your higher power, when it materializes, every human being probably feels it the same way, because that's how we're designed, right? So my role here today, I ran into my brothers here over the weekend, and it's like the third time God has put this place in front of me when I need it the most. So that's why I'm here today.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming. Any questions or comments? Yes, Parma Karuna Prabhu.
The class, question for you and Maharaj both. This verse, when we say this, yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, dikshanam. Let's say if we go to Stanford or Harvard or Princeton, we preach this, yat kirtanam, yat smaranam. Just do kirtanam, that's smaranam, ichanam. Everything will be okay. It'll work out. Now, how to convince those scientists and those high level of educationalists, how to convince them with this philosophy? Maharaj, could shed the light.
If anyone is genuinely looking for the absolute truth, then they will be able to perceive through the Vedas that Vedasya Sarvarahame Vavedyo Vedanta Krid Veda Vedevacham. The ultimate goal of the Vedas knowledge is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to come in contact with that source, that original Supreme Person. And so many authorities, we talk about scholars nowadays. What about the scholars such as Lord Brahma? What about scholars such as Narad Muni, Vyasadeva? The list of so many the greatest scholars in the history of the world have already concluded that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if they are willing to hear submissively from great other authorities and from God himself, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita speaks. And the Bhagavad Gita, Song of God, is a unique scripture, and it's recognized by scholars all over the world as being such an amazing book, because God is speaking directly, not impersonally. Sometimes we hear that God has no form, or that God can't be a person because he would be limited, or so many different ideas. But actually, God is not impersonal exclusively. He has an impersonal feature, just like the sun has several features. One can receive the sun through his rays, and one can experience the sun planet. And if one goes and knows the sun even more, he can meet the presiding deity of the sun. All these things are there, but it depends on one's realization and ability to achieve those realizations. So if someone is a scholar, that's not a hindrance for making spiritual progress, provided they're willing to understand as Krishna speaks and as the Vedas speak. If they want to interpret them and give them their own meanings, then it's not possible. So one has to be willing to take the Vedas or Krishna's words as they are, then everything will be revealed very nicely. For example, if one tries practicing these processes that we're describing here today, that kirtanam, if he tries chanting, glorifying the Lord, and seeing ikshanam and shmaranam, remembering the Lord, all these activities bring one to the stage of gradually of appreciation and ultimately love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because God reveals himself to his devotees according to their degree of surrender and their degree of sincerity. So everyone is eligible to receive this knowledge if they hear from the pure devotee. And that's an unfortunate thing that sometimes scholars have a difficult time hearing from the practitioners. They prefer to hear those who like to interpret and analyze it in their own way. That's not the way of understanding Vedic knowledge. That way never achieves success. But one has to hear and accept it as it is, as Prabhupada said, that he wants to give Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, as it is, not the way one would like it to be or one has his own ideas about. But one has to put aside his preconceived misconceptions and hear as it is and try, if he wants to really make progress, he has to follow the activities that are recommended. Then he can do so. And there are many examples of great scholars who've done that. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, one comes to mind. He was the greatest scholar of the impersonal line of even the Vedas, but he had a whole conception about the Vedic knowledge as leading one to impersonal realization. But when he came in contact with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, his heart changed. He became purified and he became a great Vaishnava scholar, devotee of the Lord.
Thank you, Maharaj. It makes sense. I don't want to stretch this and it can go on, but what you say is totally makes sense, that first qualification is submissive hearing and scholars are not ready to hear. Well, let's say if they're ready to hear that, okay, I heard you. Whatever you say, I heard you, but yesterday a Christian guy came to me. A day before yesterday, a Muslim came to me, a Jewish came to me, or Jehovah Witness came to me, and they're saying the same statement that we have our scholars. They're giving the name of their own scholars. They're giving the name of their own scripture. And they are trying to prove the authenticity, the way you are trying to prove the authenticity of your scriptures. So why should I come to your scripture? They are saying the same thing. I'm sorry, Maharaj. I'm not trying to confuse, but this other question comes up really in a heavy way.
Because if you really want to find the absolute, it's one thing to be a searcher and seeker, another thing to be a finder and actually realize love of God. If someone's realized love of God, they're willing to pay the price of working towards it. it's not necessarily that one gets it immediately. One has to make some effort. Just like anything, if to become a big scholar in any field, you have to do a lot of study, a lot of preparation. So that's required. And there's a whole it's called sadhana bhakti. Bhakti begins with these devotional practices. So if they begin step by step, anyone can make progress on the path. And that's also described by Srila Rupa Goswami. He describes it in the beginning, there has to be some faith, initial faith that God could exist. And maybe God will speak to me. Maybe he can, even if one isn't completely convinced, he's at least open enough to consider that as a possibility. And then from there, if he associates with devotees who are advanced, and then he himself takes up the practice, then gradually he'll come to different levels of devotional love towards God. And then when one is realized himself, it doesn't matter what others say or what people don't understand or misunderstand. He's convinced himself, and in many cases, he'll be able to convince others of the same idea, because realization of God is a lot more than just someone licking the outside of a jar of honey, so to speak. There's no taste in licking the outside of a jar. So one may speak about a religious experience without experiencing it himself, and he doesn't get the same thing.
Okay, so I understand. So you mean that any experienced preacher like yourself or Srila Prabhupada, they can do it because the realization is more, so and the purity is more, so easy for them to convince the people or atheists rather than any new preacher going and trying to convince them. Something like that, Maharaj?
Well, certainly advanced persons have more potency in their ability to explain things and give realizations. Although I don't put myself in that category, but Srila Prabhupada, we can see he's accomplished an extraordinary task. And those who are purely following him, they also can perform similar extraordinary tasks of bringing so many people to Krishna consciousness. Just like yourself, humbly you don't want to say, but you're giving out so many thousands of literatures to people who weren't even thinking about spiritual life necessarily. And they gladly give you their some donation, and they take the book and read it. That's a wonderful way to help people come to Krishna consciousness. So that should be continued. No one should say that now we've done the distribution part, now we have to do other things. We do other things too, but that distribution is a major part of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, to give out this knowledge to others, not just to keep it to ourselves.
Well, thank you so much. One last thing, because this is always troubling me a lot, and Maharaj is right now speaking as a nectar. Maharaj, I asked the same question to Madhavendra Puri. He's a scientist, he's a physicist. And same question that, hey, let's go to Harvard or Princeton or Stanford, and we can say that, hey, this is our research laboratories, we have our hospital, and we have our science, following 4 regulatory principles, waking up in the morning, going to Mangala Arati, circumambulating Tulsi plant. It might feel fanatic to them, but circumambulating Tulsi plant, of honoring Prasadam. If you do those things, you will get a nectar, and you will find that this science is working. Then the reply he gave to me is that they can say that, hey, I work in the lab. Can you please? I work in the lab for like 20 hours, and I'm getting the same nectar as you are getting. So what is the difference between your nectar and my nectar? They're the same nectar. It'd be great if you can speak, Maharaj.
Well, it depends on the person. If one is satisfied with what he has, then he's not going to make much effort to increase it or to change it. So we're not, if someone's happy with what they're doing, let them do that. But if someone wants to find the ultimate, if they can perceive that there's something that devotee has that no one else seems to have, that perception is what drives a person to go further and associate with them and try to understand how they're getting what they're getting. And so that's why the Krishna conscious movement seems to be expanding, because people are actually getting love for God that weren't getting it before, for whatever reason. May have been their own lack of sincerity or what have you. But somehow or other, in this association with Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, people are getting genuine love of God, and it's being observed by those who come in contact with him to a great extent.
Also, those who are working in the laboratory, that they're not solving the real problems of life, which is birth, death, old age, and disease. So after working in the library, the scientists have to face the same problems. They're also getting disease. They're also getting old, and they have to die. So what is the benefit of their scientific experiments? But the happiness and devotional service is eternal, because when one comes in contact with Krishna, then he enters into his eternal life, and he solves automatically. He's liberated from birth, death, old age, and disease. So these are the real problems, and the scientists don't touch these problems. Yeah. Anything else? It's time for the Sankirtan Festival. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
And our participators get some instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw there were some milk sweets downstairs, but I didn't know,
What?
I saw some sweets in the fridge downstairs. I didn't know if someone was saving them for something. Okay.
So for this week of May 22nd, we'll read the scores from this week for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, the Sampradaya Acharyas, Sri Sri Gaurnitai, and the assembled devotees. And we had 7 book distributors this week. So in 7th position, with 1 small book for a total of 0.25 book points, Bhakta Jacob. And Bhakta Jacob, Prabhu, you can come accept some prasadam from Maharaj over here. And in 6th position, with 1 Arabic small book, 1 small book, 3 medium books, and 1 Maha big book for 6.75 book points, Magadari Prabhu. Haribo. He's with our guest. He'll be up soon. In 5th position, with 8 small books, 7 medium books, 8 big books, and 7 Maha big books for a total of 27.5 book points, Radhastali Devidasi. In 4th position, with 4 small books, 3 medium books, 9 big books, 8 Maha big books, for a total of 26.5 book points. Jagannath Prabhu. Hari-om. In third position, with 22 small books, 16 medium books, 15 big books, 17 Maha big books, for a total of 62.5 book points. Jai Keshava Prabhu. Hari-om. And in second position, with 18 small books, 10 medium books, 21 big books, and 18 Maha big books, for a total of 66.5 book points. Radha Damodar Prabhu. Hari-om. In first position, with 69 small books, 45 medium books, 41 big books, and 41 Maha big books, for a total of 162.75 book points. Rishi Kumar Das. Hare Krishna. And that makes the week score for Rupanuga Vedic College: 1 Arabic book, 123 small books, 84 medium books, 94 big books, and 92 Maha big books, for a total of 352.75 book points. So now we all go around and each say a highlight from Sankirtan. So my highlight from this week, we went to a music festival in Minnesota, and we were only able to be there for a day before they kicked us out, unfortunately. But when we were there, I met someone who, she said, wow, is that the Bhagavad Gita? Like, I've been wanting to read this book. This is great. But she said, unfortunately, my money's in the car. So if you come back later, I'll have my money, and then I'll donate and take this book. So towards the end of the distribution that day, I came back by. She was like, I just finished setting up camp. I still don't have my money. Maybe if I see you tomorrow, I'll get the book. And so then we wrapped everything up for the day. And some security guys came by and they told us, do you have wristbands? And we said no. And they said, get out of here. So we left. And the next day we were just doing distribution at a Walmart nearby. And I was walking around in the food aisle near like the cheese. And I saw somebody in like a funky, kind of like the outfits they have at the festival, the colors and everything. And I realized it was that person. And I was like, hey, can I give you this now? She was like, yeah, I had the money right here. I was waiting. And so she got the Bhagavad Gita and a couple other books.
Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai.
There is a one. I want to share one incident. I got this it's a funny, it's a laugh. I got this person.
So I'm the scientific atheist.
So what happened is that I got this person and he was very spiritual. So I recorded I just recorded his whole conversation. And then he took the whole set, like, and he doesn't have money. And he told, I don't have money. Can I take these books? I'll give it tomorrow. And I know these people don't do this. Sure, take it. But make sure you give the money, okay? It's like at least $80 worth of books. Yeah, sure. So let's hear what he's saying.
So I was a scientific atheist, and I still believe in the scientific method. I think it's the best method that humans can use to understand nature and our physical environment. But there's an understanding thousands of years older than science that is spiritual understanding of truths. And I was open to this, but I didn't believe it. Okay, I needed evidence, and I was asking God, and kind of subconsciously, like, if you exist, God, like, show me some evidence. And the first deity I saw is Ganesh. I took a decent amount of LSD, and I saw Ganesh dancing in the sky, showing me that there is a spiritual truth to this story, this 10,000-year-old story, older than this story, one of the oldest stories of humanity. Hinduism. Another time, I had my ego killed by Kali. So I didn't know anything about these gods. I didn't study them. This is before I knew them. They showed up in my life. Kali slit my throat, and I felt the blood running down, and I felt an emptiness in my mind. That was me, my mind being free of thought. And Kali said, this is what I do. I look so evil. I'm a demon, but I work for good. I work to kill your ego. The symbolism of this is all to kill your ego, so you can know more, so you can see more. And another story, I want to say this.
Yeah, go on.
The third time I did it, I saw, believe it or not, I saw Jesus Christ in the mirror. And that gave me another truth. I said, Jesus is the lower vibration of Shiva. Shiva is the God form. Look at how they look the same. Look at their image. Shiva is the blue. Blue is what? A spiritual entity. It's a light being. Jesus was a physical being, but his spirit was Shiva. And he came to earth, God came to earth as who would he come as? Shiva. Of course he would. To try to make the world better.
Sankirtan Yajna Ki Jai.
And this guy got a whole stack and he literally sent me $71 next day. So he was serious spiritualist. This kind of people become devotee. And then I asked him to come for dinner. Unfortunately, they kicked us out, so we can't call him for the dinner. He was happy to come for dinner also. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. So Jagannath Prabhu and I were at Walmart and I went up to this car and they said, did my whole rundown, and they said no. But then immediately some guy I just heard from behind me, he said, yo, is that Bhagavad Gita? And I turn around and there's like a bunch of smoke billowing from his window. I couldn't really see him, but then I just like kind of said, yeah, it's the Bhagavad Gita. I put it in the car and I had just heard him say, whoa, Swami Prabhupada. And then I handed him a SSR and then he was really excited and then he took both of them and left a nice donation. So Sankirtan Yoga Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. The main book distribution I went to this week was at the parking lot at the Sura Theater Amphitheater in Bonner Springs. It was a nice day to distribute books, a little slow at the beginning. Towards the end, we met this group of three. They were parked on the very end of the parking lot, and the concert had already been going on for like an hour, but they were still hanging out by their car. So I approached them. I was like, hey, we're distributing this knowledge. We'd like to give some to you, and gave them one stack of books. And he's like, yeah, this sounds great. And he just saying he really appreciated it. And then Radha Stali was with me there too. And she gave another stack to this other lady. And I was thinking in my mind, like, how are they going to pay for all this? And I was like, this, the mercy of Krishna. And so they both ended up giving, this one guy gave Lakshmi for both of the sets that two other people got, but he didn't want one, but he gave the Lakshmi for them. So that was really nice. Transcendental book distribution key.
So we went to the city market and we were setting up a Harinam spot with a book table and everything. And I was flagging people down who were coming by. And this one gentleman walks by and I say, hey, man, like, check it out. We got spiritual books and love for you to take some. He was really open to it. And he took a stack, a really nice stack, and he gave a really nice donation. So it was really nice. So Transcendental Book Distribution, Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. My highlight for the week is we went to the Sura Amphitheater, and there was this lady that we approached, and she was almost brought to tears. She was like, wow, this is so sweet of you. My dad just passed away yesterday, and this is my first time really going out, and you don't know how much this means to me. And so she just happily gave a donation and now has Srila Prabhupada's books. Transcendental Book Distribution, Ki Jai.
We went to the Loose Park and we were doing a walking Harinam, and it was really nice. And there was this young guy and he had some cool hair. He was like a hippie type of guy, but clean. And yeah, I went up to him with the card. He chanted Hare Krishna with us, and then just pulled out a book, and it was a Dharma book, and I don't know why, but I like to give that one. People know that word somehow, and it's just like a cool temple on the front, so it's really cool, and it's like right in the right size. Anyway, so he just I said, yeah, it's cool books. Like, did you get one? He said, just put it in his hand, and then he said, and the whole Harinam was right there, and they were all chanting, giving him blessings. And then he just said, I said, yeah, people just give a donation. You can give from the heart. And he pulled out a 10, and he had a 1, and the 1 fell out on the ground, but he still gave me the 10. So then I gave him the Bhagavad Gita, and he was happy about that. And maybe we'll see him. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai.
We were on Harinam on Saturday, and it was near the end of Harinam, and we were going back towards the car, and I seen a group of people dancing. They were some young men in black bodies, and I seen them dancing, and I walked up to them and distributed to them, and they received the book, and they asked me if I was the man on the back of the book, and I said, no, that's our teacher, Prabhupada. And I also asked them about awareness, if they knew about awareness. And I told them that service is like a ladder, and you work towards realization, you work towards devotion. So, Transcendental Book Distribution Key.
Okay, we have one more score actually. With one small book, one medium book, one big book, and one Maha big book, for a total of 7.25? 3.75 book points. His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. So that makes the RVC total 356.5 book points. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Oh yeah, here's the story from that, and then we're all done.
So I think some of the devotees were there, they saw, but there was a group of people that were watching the Harinam from inside the patio at the Cheesecake Factory. And this one guy came up and he was chanting. Maharaj had him chant with a card. And then after, he asked about the books, and he just took the stack out of the basket and put it in his hand. And he said a few words. We were chanting, and it was pretty ecstatic. So I didn't get to hear exactly, but he asked for a donation, or he said that people usually give a donation. And he said, well, I don't have a cash, but I have electronic. And then he just, Maharaj pointed at me, and then he gave a donation, and we got his number, and that was it. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai.